So Jared here with Species Canine and my good friend and fellow trainer, Taylor, down there in San Antonio. How are you, Taylor?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. So this is our first of hopefully many. We'll see how this goes, right? Uh, we're going to bring up different topics regarding dog training, anything dog related. So today I think we want to discuss kind of how to select a dog, right? For whether it's from shelter, from foster, from a rescue group, what's the things we can go through, how to do that, to how to make it easier transition into someone's home. Actually, at Species Can, we actually offer this as a thing. It's $50 to help pick a dog. So we'll kind of run through that, kind of what we do here. So go ahead now, kick it off, Taylor, because your background a little bit is in some rescue work and working with some rescues down there in San Antonio and trapping dogs and doing all that fun stuff and helping the stray population. So what's the first thing? It comes to mind, someone says, hey, Taylor, I want to get a dog. I'm going to go to the shelter or something like that, or go to rescue. What's the first thing that comes to your mind of suggestions on how to make that process easier?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is make sure that they understand what they actually want. There's a lot of people that think that they want a Belgian Malinois, for example, and many of those people shouldn't own a Belgian Malinois, right? So ensuring that you have an accurate assessment of your lifestyle and also what you're willing to do and not do. So for some people, they might kind of have that heart to rescue a dog, but they might not have the willingness to put up with behavioral issues if they arise or address those behavioral issues. They might want to select a dog for a specific purpose, like a service dog or something like that. And in that area, it might be more practical for them to actually go to a breeder that breeds for that specific purpose, right? So just looking at what is the purpose of the dog and what is your lifestyle, what's your end goal in having this dog. I think that kind of avoids a lot of problems before they even start, if you are honest about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even going a step further, because what happens is people, I have a pit bull, and you have a pit bull. You've met Igor, and I've met Bowie, right? They're both classified as pit bulls. And they are on the opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to pit bulls, right? So, Igor, as long as I do a proper introduction to somebody, he's never met a stranger in his life. You come over, you're his best friend, he wants belly rubs. He's just a grumpy old man now. He's about 11 years old, but he's been that way his whole life. He's never met a stranger when properly introduced. You don't come around, I'm not around. You walk into the house, he's got massive territorial aggression. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But he loves people. He wants to get pets, and he knows those things. Bowie, on the other hand, on the opposite of the spectrum, she's bite first, I'm gonna ask questions later type girl, and take no prisoners, right? So people see that. So they see a dog like Igor, and they're like, oh man, that's a great dog. I want to get a pit bull, thinking that all pit bulls are like that. And then they go to the pound or they go to a rescue and they get this dog. And then all of a sudden they have all these problems, and they're like, well, my friend's dog's not like that, or this dog was like that. And that's where the traits come in, right? And understanding different traits and what the dogs are bred for and things like that, where, it's really important that when you're selecting a dog, especially in those rescue scenarios, that you don't know the background. You don't understand the parents breeding, what they were. So in the case of a pit bull, you could be getting a dog that was pulled from a fighting ring.
Yeah.
It was a puppy in a fighting ring, and it's one generation out of wanting to kill other dogs. And so they get this dog, and it's just showing all these massive aggression, towards other dogs, and they don't understand why. And that was bred in those traits. So really understanding that and really look at the heart of the breed itself and assume the worst.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get a German Shepherd, what were they bred for? They're bred for herding. They're bred for chasing. They have a high prey drive. So just assume you're going to have a dog that's going to have a really high prey drive. They're going to bite everything they see. They're going to need lots of exercise and lots of work. just assume that that's the worst. Best case scenario, if you're not looking for that type of dog, you want like a relaxed, chilled German Shepherd. Maybe you got something that you got lucky and you got maybe like a show line, so that all those traits are really bred out of them. And there's a really pretty dog, and they're going to chill and be a great family dog, and they're not going to have that really high drive. So really understanding the traits of what you're going for. But you also touched on the aspect of what's your life, right? What's habitation for this dog going to look like, and really where does this dog fit into the family realm? Yeah, when that movie with Channing Tatum came out,
Dog.
Yeah, dog with the Belgian Malinois.
Yeah,
there's 3 different dogs that were actually in that filmed that show, that filmed that movie. And I was so worried when that came out, is people are gonna see that, oh, I want that dog, it's so smart, all this. But the thing they did awesome in that movie, they made it so realistic what it's like to have a Belgian that dog's chasing chickens, it's running, eats his car, it just destroys his life, and it's just biting everybody.
Yeah.
It's awesome that they showed like the negative side of that. And it's not like it's not always old Yeller, right? Where you got helpful dogs. So that's those are great things. And when you're selecting those dogs, if you're not having the knowledge per se, or you don't like hire somebody like species to help you out with that process, going with a foster group or some type of rescue group that maybe specializes in that breed might be ideal, because most of the time those dogs are living in a home with somebody, so they've been exposed to a home and they got a little bit of training, maybe some housebreaking, things like that, and you'll have a better understanding of that dog's behavior versus just walking into the pound and you get this thing, it's been off the street for a week or 10 days, where we went through the quarantine process, and now it's up for adoption, and you know nothing about it, and the staff doesn't know anything about it, and those dogs typically shut down a lot in the pound, and so they don't see any behavioral issues typically. Yep. Sometimes you do, but the dog gets home and they start having all these behavioral issues because the dog kind of comes out of its shell.
Yep.
Anything you would add on that?
Yeah, I would definitely, to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, there are a lot of rescues that, especially down here in Texas, that do a lot of great work where they're spending a lot of hands-on time with the dog. Even if the dog is not in a foster home, they're getting to know the dog. They're putting the dog in different situations. They're testing the dog around cats, around kids, getting to know specific things, so that if you are looking for a dog, you're kind of getting a better approximation of their personality, what their, likes, dislikes are, what they're prone to do. And it's a lot less of a roll of the dice, if you will, than just finding a dog at the pound who the shelter is overworked, understaffed. They're going in and feeding the dog twice a day and maybe letting it out. And that's about the entire interaction the dog's having with people. So whatever the shelter staff can tell you about the dog is really not very in depth, and it's not a great situation in the first place. So yeah, definitely, if you're not somebody that is comfortable with kind of the risk there of not knowing the background of the dog and how the dog is going to be, you're much better off rescuing from an established ethical rescue that have fosters, that the community knows. That's definitely the best way to go.
Yeah. Now people, always, people love puppies, right? It's like babies. Everybody loves a baby, right? It's hard to hate a puppy. But a lot of times, people think they want a puppy, and really what they need is a nice senior dog.
Yeah.
So, there's a time and place, for a puppy, if you have the energy and the time to put into it. But getting a more mature dog, 5, 6, 7 years old, and giving that dog an amazing another 4 or 5, possibly 10 years of its life, in a great home and a great environment, has something to do. Like, there's something to say about that, right? There's, these dogs, they're in the pound, they might have been given up for whatever reason, and it's a really sad reason, especially the older dogs. But if they don't have any like massive health issues, anything like that, those dogs they're calm, most of them. They got that energy out of them, and they're just gonna be a really chill household dog and just be a great family pet. And those are something always to consider.
Yep.
People are wanting a dog. I actually had a potential client reach out to me, and she wanted a Belgian Malinois, and I was like, why? Why in the hell do you want to get your 21-year-old daughter this dog? and she had all these grand illusions in her mind, and I was like, no, I said, look, she had all the best intentions in the world, right? But the road to failure is paved with good intentions. And so I had this conversation. I asked her, like, why? And she's like, well, it's a really great dog. We want to do this and that. And I'm like, that's great. But I want you to think about this. This dog's going to live for 10, 15 more years when you get this thing. Your daughter is in her early 20s. You have no idea where she's going to be at in 15 years from now. And when I was 20, I love dogs, but that's the last thing I wanted to take care of.
Yeah.
You're in college, you're going to school, you're doing all these other things. Like, no, she doesn't need this type of responsibility, especially that. You want to get her a dog, let's get her, a nice, nice old lab. Let's get hang out and go for a walk once a day and take 16-hour naps, right? But having that expectation of what this dog is going to do for you and what you're really looking for and the energy that takes to put into that. Versus puppies, because they got the chewing aspect, they're gonna be chewing on everything, so you gotta make sure you're redirecting and helping that. And typically these older dogs, they're just chill dogs. They just want to hang out and play a little bit here and there and just relax and enjoy their golden years. So always to consider, always look at those older dogs and give them that second chance. If you really want to rescue a dog and do the humane thing and help somebody out, help a dog out, give them their last best life, pick a senior dog. You won't regret it. You won't get as much time with them, but it's going to be a lot of time for them, and they're going to have a much better life. So when you're going in, you're going in and you're seeing these dogs, and whether it's a shelter situation or meeting a dog for the first time, what's one of the first things that you're looking at this dog? You're going to decide, like, hey, I want to know more about this dog. I want to possibly meet it. What are you looking for? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I think kind of the first thing to keep in mind is the shelter is a really stressful environment. Even if they're in a rescue, that can be a stressful environment, particularly if you have kennels close together, you get kennel stress. Understanding that first impressions might not be the best approximation of the dog. I met a beagle once, and the shelter staff was telling me that this dog could not be handled by anyone. This was a really dangerous dog. Just real intense, not even fear aggression. It was a fear biter. You cornered the dog and the dog would lash out. And I ended up fostering this dog. This was one of the sweetest dogs I've ever met. And this dog was in my lap on day 2 once she understood that she wasn't going to be hurt. Not saying that all cases are like that. There are certainly plenty of cases where the aggression is real and will stay outside of the shelter environment, but just keeping in mind that first impressions in a shelter environment are just that. This is not a vacuum. This is contextual. Also understanding that looks are not everything. A lot of people like talking about Belgian Malinois. They're beautiful dogs. And that's kind of their allure, but that doesn't mean that the behavior is going to be matching what you want. So if you can get a dog out of whatever kennel they're in, get them into a play yard, see what they're like. Do they want to engage with you? Are they more interested in barking at the other dogs around? Do they seem like they're gentle? Do they seem like they're super high energy? Of course, keeping in mind that if a dog has been in a kennel for 24 hours a day, they're going to appear to have a lot of energy when you first let them out. The first thing I would do is try and form some sort of relationship with the dog through play or through affection, and try and get a read on how much the dog seems to want to bond with me. For me, that's one of the most important things in a dog, is the bond that I get to have with them, the communication I get to have with them. That would always be the first place I would go, is trying to connect with the dog on some level.
Right. Yeah, I fully agree. The other thing, when you're looking at getting a dog, a lot of rescues will actually kind of give you a trial run, allow you for, do an overnight or 2 nights or something with the dog, see how it fits in your life and kind of get an understanding of it. It's something you always want to ask about. I think most, shelters, they'll allow that as well. And then you brought up like fostering, right? So, even a lot of these rescues, they'll allow you to foster. You fill out the paperwork, you do a foster agreement. It's going to be very similar to a rescue agreement with them, and allow you to foster the dog for some time. And so then if you hey, after a week or two, this isn't working out, this isn't the type of dog we really need in our life right now, whatever it may be, you can take it back to the rescue, and no harm, no foul, basically. Then you carry on. It's like test driving cars. You're going to see what's going to work for you and your family and your environment. So yeah, that's awesome. I think these are a lot of great tips. Hopefully this will help some people out there that are looking to possibly adopt all 5 subscribers, whatever we have to the channel right now. But if you're watching this and you like it, you got some information out of it, some knowledge, it's entertaining, whatnot, like, subscribe, share, turn people onto it, comment on it. The more kind of feedback we get from likes and subscribers and things, that just encourages us to do more of this and bring more of it into it as well. And one of the things we discussed coming into setting this up is kind of like this podcast, talking about different things, is doing like product review. And one of the first ones we want to talk about is something I really like. So in training, right? We'll get into training. So when we start training a dog and just doing initial marking and teaching behaviors, because dogs aren't born knowing what sit means or heel or anything like that, right? So we have to do a lot of luring and prompting, and so we typically do that through treats. And I love these treats, Full Moon dog treats. Not sponsored by them. If someone from Full Moon sees this video and you want to sponsor me, hit me up. We can have a conversation. The reason I like these, several. One, they're made in the USA. Human grade ingredients. They're a small company. They're not owned by some massive corporation that's selling everything and anything under the sun. But primarily, they smell amazing. These treats, so dogs want to follow them. As soon as they smell it, they're very curious about it. They want to follow it. So it makes luring into different positions for the dog so much easier. I've had clients come in, first training session, they want some treats. There's no scent to them. They're just garbage treats. And then the dog's really not luring and not following very well. And so I'll pull out some of the Full Moon, treats, and the dog's like, ooh, they're really interested in it, and they want to smell it, and they start following it. And then they taste great, and the dog is really wanting it, and they start working for it. So it just makes training that much easier when you have something that the dog is really curious about. So, if you're looking for a good quality treat, I highly recommend, Full Moon right now, as long as they stay true. As long as they stay true to their roots, and they don't sell out some big corporation or something like that, then I'll stick with them for now. But it's a great treat product. Love it. These are for my dogs, my clients' dogs. So and I haven't had anybody complain that the dog's getting upset, have an upset stomach or anything from eating a whole bunch of treats during a training session.
Yeah, and I've gotten many stray dogs off the street with those treats. They're great. They're great for bait. Yeah. Even when a dog is scared, they're willing to follow that treat. So
yeah, because they smell really good, especially when you open the packet brand new. Mm-hmm. So it's always fun doing that like third phase training when you're looking for really high distraction. You open a brand new bag of those, so they really smell at that point. So they smell good. But so again, if you're getting information from this, it's helpful some way, shape, or form. Like it, share it. Subscribe to the channel. We're gonna start posting more stuff. We're gonna be really random. It's always gonna be something dog related, right? So we're gonna continue to build on this. Get more and more in-depth in content. We'll talk about different training styles. We'll talk about training in general. Maybe we'll do some critiques of some protection videos and things like that. Show Taylor in the bite suit and things like that. And maybe show some of my client stuff, doing some protection work. Got a couple of them working on that right now. Just training in general. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out through the Species Canine page. That's speciescanine.com. I have a contact page there. Feel free to reach out or leave a comment here, and we'll get back to you. And everybody be safe out there and happy training.